you see him on the news.
CNN.com contributor, Dean Obeidallah. So, Dean,
watch him at comedy clubs.
When I say Mecca, do you think of a holy place or an urban clothing line?
Read his articles, and you hear him on the radio. The Dean Obeidallah Show is on live right here on SiriusXM Progress, channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters of the resistance. Thursday, January 24th. We're live for the next 3 hours. Good to see Michelangelo back in the studio because we share the same studio. He had some fun in Paris. And back to the real world, and so much going on. Look, the State of the Union might not be great, but the state of Nancy Pelosi is rock solid, my friends. Trump gave in. There's no going to be any State of the Union, so it's game, set, match Pelosi. And as you might imagine, the late night comics last night had some fun with this. So we'll start off there, then we'll get into the serious stuff. Here's Colbert last night on the whole exchange between Trump and Pelosi. Clip number 1, please.
Pelosi wrote back that the House of Representatives will not consider a concurrent resolution authorizing the president's State of the Union address in the House chamber until the government has opened. Man. She just spanked him with a co-equal branch. Careful, he likes that. Now, Pelosi ended her letter very politely, writing, "I look forward to welcoming you to the House on a mutually agreeable date for this address when the government has been opened." Adding in a personal note, at which point we'll cordially invite you to attend and select one of 3 entrees: humble pie, crow, or my juicy ass.
So she had some fun there, and Seth Meyers had a quick joke about it. Here's clip number 2.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi sent a letter to the White House today saying that she will not allow President Trump to deliver the State of the Union address next week if the government is still shut down. Damn! If Trump really wants a strong wall on the Mexican border, he should build it out of Nancy Pelosi.
So clearly she got the better of him. And, you know, the gamesmanship was fun. We enjoyed it. It pissed off people on the right, on Twitter, and also who called the show, and I didn't take their calls. They were outraged how happy we were that Pelosi said to Trump, "Not in my house." But this is a very serious issue. And yesterday we had some fun with that. But now let's talk about the human consequence and cost by the Trump shutdown and what is going on and continuing. Now, as of today, you might know there were 2 votes in the Senate to fund the government. A Trump plan that would include $5 billion for his wall. That was defeated. Then a Democratic plan was defeated, but actually got more votes than the Trump plan because more Republicans came over and voted for it. In any event, that ended. Now Trump is saying, if Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell make a deal and it's reasonable, I'll agree to it. And he goes, I want a down payment on my wall. So apparently Trump wants a wall on layaway, maybe over a series of payments. We can show him the wall after a few payments. Then after a few more payments, he can touch the wall. And then, after 20 or 30 payments, he can actually own part of it. Look, it's not happening. The wall's not going to happen because it's not good policy. It's not good policy. That's why it's not going to happen. We are going to have border security. We're not going to have a wall because Trump in his little brain, a man who's a failed businessman, is going to dictate a wall because he wants one. This is not whimsical. This is our government. So, sorry, Trump, you're not getting it. And why he's really backing down now, and we're seeing it. New polls yesterday, very, very clear. CBS poll, 70% of Americans, and you know how hard it is to get 70% of Americans to agree on anything. 70% think the border wall is not worth shutting the government down for. That means Republicans started coming over. And 65% of Republicans said, yes, shut the government down for the wall, 65%. But that is a drop from earlier numbers of 75 and 80%. So you're finally seeing the GOP base move away on this issue. And that's all Trump cares about. Trump is not president of the United States. He is king of his base. He would even tell you that. He doesn't care about the rest of us. And what we're seeing with Trump and the comments from Lara Trump and today of Wilbur Ross, Secretary of Commerce, this Trump administration is telling the American workers, federal workers and federal contractors, let them eat cake. Let them eat cake because they don't care. And maybe it's hard to expect billionaires and millionaires to care about the working class in this country because they've never had to deal with paycheck to live their life. They've never had to worry about how to pay for something they want. In Trump's case, when things go bad, he files for bankruptcy and moves on and gets money from Russia. The rest of us, that's not the world we live in. The real world is far different. So here was, and this was so upsetting, we didn't play it yesterday, Lara Trump, and why this is fair. I know she's just the daughter-in-law. She's married to Eric Trump. She was a formal advisor of Trump during the campaign. It's been on Fox News representing Trump countless times as surrogate. So her words matter. It's not just a random person. Here was first yesterday her comment about federal workers should suck it up. It's going to be fine. You're sacrificing for the greater good. Here's clip number 3.
In terms of the workers who are coming to work and not getting paid, what would you say to them?
Listen, it's not fair to you, and we all get that, but this is so much bigger than any one person. It is a little bit of pain, but it's going to be for the future of our country, and their children and their grandchildren and generations after them will thank them for their sacrifice right now.
It's a little bit of pain. It's a little bit of pain that you can't pay for your insulin you need and your child's care and your food. It's a little bit of pain. And she said, you're going to sacrifice for the future generations. How many times in our history have the wealthy told the rest of this nation to sacrifice for the future? All the time. This is not Democrat or Republican. That's the truth. There's a great disconnect. I'm not about like go get the rich and with fire and brimstone and pitchforks. Just being honest. That's the reality. So when a rich person like Lara Trump says, you working class should sacrifice for us, that's been told for generations to the working class, and not just in the United States of America either. And then Lara Trump went on, and this clip didn't get much play, talking about how Donald Trump sacrificed so much for this shutdown and how hard it's been on him. And you want to guess why? Well, here you can hear for her own lips. Here's clip 4.
Obviously, we wish that we were working on our TANs as well.
I need it.
The president would have liked to have been at Mar-a-Lago for Christmas and New Year's with all of us. Instead, he was at the White House in Washington working again on behalf of the American people.
Oh, so Donald Trump couldn't stay at his private exclusive country club. So that's a sacrifice. She couldn't get a tan. That's a sacrifice. These are their words. We don't have to spin them. You hear them. This is how they think. They are wealthy, wealthy people. God bless them. They're lucky they're wealthy people. But there's no sense of what the rest of this country goes through. And these workers, and I keep saying the statistics so people understand, only 40% of Americans have $1,000 in their bank account or more. So 60% don't. When you don't get a paycheck for 35 days, it has an impact on your life. And then today, it got worse. Today, Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross, he's in the cabinet. He's also a billionaire. And these are his comments about, first he said to CNBC, he didn't understand why federal workers were even going to food banks. Here's stunning. Here's clip number 5.
There are reports that there are some federal workers who are going to homeless shelters to get food.
Well, I know they are, and I don't really quite understand why, because as I mentioned before, the obligations that they would undertake, say a borrowing from a bank or a credit union, are in effect federally guaranteed. So the 30 days of pay that some people will be out, there's no real reason why they shouldn't be able to get a loan against it.
No real reason. Of course, your credit history might play a role, and now you have to get another debt obligation because of Donald Trump, guaranteed or not by federal credit unions. And then he said something that was truly stunning. He talked about these workers in only a way that a Trumpian cabinet official and someone like Trump could. Not as human beings, but in terms of impact on the GDP. And listen, this is very clarifying closely. He's not being partisan. He's not being hyperbolic. He's just sharing with you his view of 800,000 federal workers not getting paid. And even if they didn't get paid, it's not that big of a deal to our economy in the big picture. And this is not out of context. This was not a question about how it will impact the GDP. This is just literally where Wilbur Ross's mind as a billionaire went when talking about people out of work. Here's clip number 6.
Put it in perspective. You're talking about 800,000 workers, and while I feel sorry for the individuals that have hardship cases, 800,000 workers, if they never got their pay, which is not the case, they will eventually get it. But if they never got it, you're talking about 0.33% on our GDP. So it's not like it's a gigantic number overall.
You're talking about 1/3% on our GDP. That's what 800,000 federal workers are in the eyes of the Trump administration. And those are their words. No need to play games. No need to spin it. And he adds, so it's not like it's a gigantic number overall. Yes, it is a gigantic number. And what he keeps leaving out are the federal contractors, which are estimated from now, I've seen estimates at 1.2 million to 4 million. I don't know the exact numbers because the media won't tell us, but we know it's over 1 million federal contractors. And Donald Trump's response today in the let him eat cake mentality on Twitter was to say, quote, we will not cave. So to Trump, a political win is more important than those workers and their families. But I care. We care. We should all care. This should not be part of it. They are fellow Americans who are hostages of Donald. Sincerely think about this. What would your life be? And some might not be affected badly, but what would your life be if for 34 days you had no income? You're about to get another pay. It could be Thursday. It could be a week from now, but you just don't know. And how do you plan your life? How would you feel talking to your family and your children about trying to pay bills for them and plan for the future when you have no idea your next paycheck? And here's a few examples. I want to give people real world so you can hear. TSA workers in Chicago. I went to local media outlets. I think this is so important to go to not the national news a lot, but the local media, because they're doing on the ground speaking to people in their communities. The local media in Chicago, spoke to TSA workers. It says here, some have been arriving at local food pantries. The CEO of a local food pantry, Kelly O'Connell, said that they've assisted 130 federal workers since the government shut down. Quote, it's really been a sobering moment for her to have to step in and say, I need help. She was talking about people saying that to her. Daryl English, a TSA officer for 14 years, talking about going to a food bank, said, quote, after a while, you have to let that pride go. How hard is that? I mean, it almost moves me to tears, the idea that let your pride go. This man's an older man is going to a food bank, even though he's working full time at the TSA. Because for him and his family, he's got to go to a food bank because he has no income in 34 days. TSA officer Latoya Winfrey's 35, says she has 3 kids, been borrowing money from her friends to get by, applied for food stamps, and was denied, told try again next month. Gloria Perez, 42 years old, TSA officer, said she's stealing from Peter to pay Paul, meaning she's picking which bills she can wait and which can't wait. She said she missed work last week as a TSA officer. It's unpaid, but she's supposed to work because she's having anxiety attacks every day thinking about her financial situation. Let's talk about the Coast Guard. 41,000 active duty service members and 2,100 civilians are considered essential personnel, are all working without a paycheck. 41,000 active duty members in our military not getting paid, 2,100 civilians. On Tuesday, the Coast Guard's top admiral, Admiral Carl Schultz, talked about the anxiety and stress members of the Coast Guard, saying this is unacceptable. And to give you an idea what the Coast Guard's doing, on Sunday, the Coast Guard cutter Berthoff departed from California with 170 members on board, and they're going for deployment in the Pacific that'll last 6 months. This is typical for the Coast Guard. People think about it like they're just on the border. No, they're out on our international water border. They're gone for 6 months, not knowing if their family's going to get a paycheck when they're gone. Think about the extra stress of that. In fact, here's a clip I found, a local story in Connecticut, talking about the Coast Guard there and their impact. So let's hear the story of Coast Guard family in Connecticut and the impact that's having. Clip number 7, please.
Every day you will see people in this Coast Guard lining the aisles of this pop-up food pantry. They're picking up basic necessities, whether it be diapers or toilet paper. And they say, while they are so grateful for the community support, the anxiety is building up as the shutdown continues.
There's a lot of hurt. There's also, we've come together, but we're going to forever feel this. This has been really hard.
It's now part of the norm to see Coast Guard men and women, some in uniform, picking up food, even diapers from the pantry set up at the Coast Guard Academy.
You can just see the morale. It's going down, we're going along with our jobs and doing the best we can, but you can see that, the hurt.
Petty Officer Second Class Crystal Walker says she, her 4 kids, and her husband are so appreciative for this community support and for her Coast Guard family to lean on. But with it nearing week 5 of the partial government shutdown, that family is getting smaller.
We've lost a lot of our Coast Guard civilians that had to take other jobs.
The Coast Guard is still out on missions. Just yesterday, crews were breaking ice on the Connecticut River.
So they're out there working. And think about that, especially you Trump supporters. Members of our military in uniform going to food banks because they can't feed their family because Donald Trump's wall. Is that worth it? Is that really worth it? Think about that for a second. Do you feel good about yourself that you've driven people in military in uniform going to food banks because you support Trump and his wall? Is that really worth it? Because that's what you've done. That's exactly what's going on. And federal contractors, they don't get the coverage they do. Federal contractors are simply people employed by companies, third-party companies. It's not directly for the government, but they work in government institutions like the Smithsonian, where they work as guards. Well, they're laid off and they get no back pay. And estimates, again, $1.2 million to $4 million. Here's a clip I want to play. Here's Michelle Serrano. She's the lead security officer at the Smithsonian National Museum in New York. There's various ones, obviously. There's one branch here in New York, talking about the impact on her. Let's hear clip number 8.
We don't have a safety net. You know, we're not federal employees, so we don't get a pension. We don't have, what federal employees have. Contractors, we work for a company that got us this position. So, we're not going to get the back pay, and they're not going to help us pay for health insurance, and we're not in furlough, definitely, because, that's only for federal employees.
So these are just lost months?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. This is going to be 1 month. So if it goes to another month and another month, it's scary.
It's scary. Of course it is. There's no back pay. More of the people out of work are those who are federal contractors than federal employees. The federal employees, thankfully, will get back pay. The federal contractors will not. And Michelle Serrano went on in that interview to talk about the real-world impact. As a result of no pay and not knowing where the next paycheck is coming, her 19-year-old daughter had to sit out a semester this semester, now January, at the Borough of Manhattan Community College because they don't have the money. So the real things going on. And even more broadly, like people who depend on the federal government that don't even work for the federal government, like Native Americans. There's a great article in the New York Times. It says all across Indian country, the federal shutdown slices deep. Generations ago, tribes negotiated treaties with the U.S. government guaranteeing funds for services like healthcare, education, in exchange for their territory. That money's not coming anymore. One tribe, the Chippewa Indian tribe in Michigan, the shutdown comes with a price tag of $100,000 a day they're not getting. In federal aid for health clinics, food pantries, the tribe is spending their own money, but they're limited in what they can do. So this is a lifeline for many Native American tribes. And when you go even broader, we went very specific, now you go broader to the general public. Article after article today, the aviation, the concern that our aviation system in this country is becoming more risky. Today, a joint statement released by the presidents of the National Air Traffic Controllers, airline pilots, and associated flight attendants warned of risk increasing due to what's going on. They said, quote, "This is already the longest government shutdown in the history of the U.S., no end in sight. In our risk-averse industry, we cannot even calculate the level of risk currently at play, nor predict the point at which the entire system will break. It is unprecedented. If the system breaks, that means a plane crashes. That's what we're talking about, not lost luggage. We're talking about people dying. In fact, here is Air Traffic Controller Union President Paul Rinaldi last night on CNN talking about the risk. Clip number 9.
We're talking about our quality assurance. We're talking about our training people. We're talking about our tactical support. We're talking about people that will fix the equipment as it has gone down, which it has in 33 days. And now it has gone from fix on fail to fix when we open the government. This inserts risk into a system that we shouldn't be inserting risk. We should be pulling it out of the system.
And Trump's all about crime. Well, guess what? The FBI, according to the FBI, is at a breaking point. Thomas O'Connor, FBI Agents Association, said the resources available to support the work of the FBI agents are currently stretched to the breaking point and are dwindling day by day. The FDA, all non-essential work is ended, meaning except for high-risk places, they're not inspecting food. So they're not doing the food inspection. God forbid there's an outbreak and it's not caught and people die from it. And finally, it's all about individuals, though, at the end. We talk about swaths of people being affected, the public being affected. Here's New York Times cut together. It's a really quick cut of various federal workers struggling. You can hear from them directly how they are impacted. And I thought this was pretty powerful. Here's clip number 10.
I've got to try to keep the lights on or keep the water on, and I got to keep my phone on. And I don't know how I'm going to be able to do all of that.
Like, it's not our fault. We've done our job up to this point. You know, we were working overtime before all this to be able to meet the taxpayers' needs.
You know, I just bought a house November 13th, 2018, and 5 weeks later, we have a shutdown. So, you know, I was able to make my first payment. We didn't ask for any of this. We just wanted to go to work and do our job, period.
There's all of this coverage about people in the D.C. area who are getting free lunches and going to food banks, and that there's some level of community support there. But out here in, sort of middle America, out here in Mississippi, we don't have that network.
I think to secure the border is important. I guess I can understand where the president's coming from, but at the expense of 800,000 people's livelihood, I don't.
And that's it. It's a balancing. And Donald Trump's response today is on Twitter, "We will not cave." It's about winning at all costs. Trump has uttered no concern, no compassion, no empathy for the people who are suffering because he doesn't care about them. He has deemed them to be Democrats in a tweet. Completely accurate. Said they're mostly Democrats. They don't matter. Only Trump's base matters to him. And this is where we stand. People are suffering because Donald Trump and a wall. And a wall is not border security. It is a campaign promise. And my heart breaks for these people suffering because of Trump. So let's take a break. I'd love to hear from you. 866-997-4748. Let's try to make sense of this together. Be right back.
The Dean Obeidallah Show.
Whoever's the next president, we should call him the 45th president of the United States. And this will